Should those that consider themselves to be on the right in terms of politics reconsider their stance on marijuana? I say that they should. And the real reason for that is I'm a big believer in personal freedoms. And I think for too long, Republicans, people on the right, maybe center right, maybe even some that would consider themselves to be libertarian on certain issues, I think they've failed on this particular issue simply because in other areas, we certainly promote that we are the party of freedom. When it comes to free speech, really just constitutional matters, we're really all for that. And I know you might find some examples here and there of somebody that consider themselves on the right and they don't believe in those issues wholeheartedly. But I'm talking about in general, and especially coming from myself, in terms of the Constitution, I want that to be left alone. But in regards to the marijuana issue, I think we've kind of just turned our backs on it, and for too long. You see, the tides, I believe, are turning, and as more and more states sort of open up to the idea of not only medical marijuana, but recreational marijuana, I think we need to accept the fact that people are starting to have different opinions, and it's time that our movement adopts a different opinion as well. And in order for us to really say that we are the party of freedom, I think we need to practice what we preach. And if somebody wants to put something in their body on their own free will, I think that they should have the freedom to do so. So that's why I really think the marijuana issue comes down to just realizing that it's a freedom of choice type thing, right? Now, I know what some people might say, because I think in terms of the Republicans, and I know the politics always is an ever-changing thing. So Republicans from 20 years ago are much different from Republicans today. But I feel like there's kind of two arguments as to why they really haven't gotten on board of the recreational marijuana issue. I think the first one comes down to sort of, I guess, like a moral standpoint, saying how really it's not natural to put something like that in your body, etc., etc. And I could be wrong. I'm not trying to make or create a straw man argument. I'm really trying just to make sense of it. Now, the second one I would say is the fear of the unknown, because I definitely have heard it a lot in terms of people sort of correlate if someone were to get high on marijuana and get behind the wheel of a car, well, how would we treat that any differently from drunk driving, right? They try and sort of correlate the two. And I would say I would treat it the same in the sense that if somebody is going to get behind the wheel when they're impaired, well, I think that they should be reprimanded for whatever the charges might be, right? And we can talk about that another time. But I'm just taking it, again, from a personal freedom style or standpoint, in that, let's say somebody works, a long day, a long week, and they want to go home and say they crack open a cold one, right? They crack open a six-pack. I have no issue with that. I want to treat marijuana the same exact way. If somebody uses it on their own free will and they're not hurting anybody else, who cares? Who cares if they go home and they blaze up and do their thing? And I'll be completely honest with you. It's not my style, okay? It's not my cup of tea. Now, I live in New Jersey, and I believe we just voted in the past election. It was on the ballot to legalize marijuana. And if it goes through and it becomes legal here, again, it's not my scene. So I really have no real take in whether or not it goes legal or not, simply because on a personal level, it's not for me. But I really want to sort of adapt what those on the right have been preaching for all these years about how, well, we're the party of freedom, so on and so forth. I want to extend that freedom even more to say, hey, if you want to use marijuana, have at it. But it's going to come with some potential caveats, and here's what I mean. If you think you're just going to sit around and smoke marijuana and collect a government check, well, at least in my eyes, you got another thing coming. Because I think with great freedom also comes great responsibility. So if you want to have the freedom to use marijuana, absolutely, totally agree with you on that. But you still have to be able to be a productive citizen, right? You got to pay your bills. If you have a family, you have to support that family, so on and so forth. So that's why I think the Republican Party, those that are on the right, should really start coming around and thinking about whether or not they should believe that marijuana shouldn't be recreational. I really think that it's something worth talking about, simply because I think we can appeal to many more people in regards to the personal freedom standpoint. Now, at the end of the day, these are just my thoughts. And I want to know what your thoughts are, because this channel is for you. So I want you to let me know. Do you think that people on the right should reconsider their thoughts on marijuana? Do you think that the government should really have any say in whether or not citizens can or can't put something in their body? I want you to sound off in the comment section. But as always, I appreciate you checking out the channel, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. And by the way, just a little bit of a side note, I know I was blocking it the entire time, but in case you weren't able to make it out, this is, I guess, the libertarian take on the Gadsden flag, right? The "Don't Tread on Me" flag. And I gotta say, I'm a pretty big believer in what this says: don't tread on anyone. And just, I guess, another little fun fact: this isn't recognized by the Libertarian Party, but rather people who consider themselves to be libertarian. But the animal symbol that they chose was the porcupine, and the reason for that was because they believe that it's a relatively peaceful animal. When everyone else leaves it alone, it does its thing. But when push comes to shove, if the porcupine has to defend itself, it has the spikes on the back to do so. And I think that's something that I could totally be on board with.